Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome in to another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conlin, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. In the Dukes, the team coached by Curt Cignetti has named a starting quarterback. Well, basically named a starting quarterback. Days before the season opener. What a surprise. What a pleasant surprise.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that we know who QB1 is here a few days away from the first game. I didn't think we were going to know who the QB1 was until going into the UVA game. Nay, even 5 minutes before the UVA game. But here we are. We got a two deep full of oars, but that didn't seem to matter. Few hours after that two deep is dropped, Curt Cignetti goes on record and says, if the season started in an hour, Jordan McLeod is the backup.
And went as far, and we'll get to this certainly, went as far to say that Alonza Barnett had separated himself significantly from the pack. So I know there was some reports there of like technically he didn't say so-and-so is starting. He pretty much did, right? Alonza Barnett is the starting quarterback.
Yeah, he didn't technically say it, but he said it in every other sense of the word of saying it. He did not say Alonza Barnett is the starter, but what he did say is if the season started today, Alonza Barnett would be our quarterback.
Yeah, so, and it starts in a couple days, right? I don't think you're having a QB battle 3 days before our first game.
Yeah. But you know what else is happening before the first game?
This will be good. I'm excited to hear what you have.
Betting on sports. BetOnline is number one source for all of your sports betting needs this season. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games. They're all available right to play right from your phone. Head to the website today. That is betonline.ag, or you can use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the sports betting action. When you use promo code BELIEVE, that is promo code BLEAV at sign up, you'll get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So you throw $200 in there, BetOnline will hook you up with $100 as a welcome bonus, so you get $300 to start betting with. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
Shout out to BetOnline. Shout out to Three Notched, our lovely partners at Three Notched, who I absolutely adore. You know that. They have a lot going on in Harrisonburg and just across Virginia, right? Minuteman Mondays.
Woo.
You've got discounted pours. You can also get, what is this? You can get $25 cases of Minuteman IPA on Monday. I got to get myself in there. That's pretty cool. That's at every Three Notch location.
All day, no limit.
I'm being told. Sources confirm. Although Tuesday better than Monday at Three Notch? I would argue that it is.
Yeah, because I love Minutemans, but man, if I could choose, I love choosing.
I also enjoy the nice choice now and again. Every Tuesday, 50% off cases of Three Notch beer in the Harrisonburg tap room. That's a really good deal, especially if you're like an upperclassman and you're probably not doing that much on a Tuesday. You know, pretty easy opportunity to get yourself in there. And then Friday. First Tap Friday, pretty cool as well. They're releasing new beers on a weekly basis, which seems impressive. At some point, I'm going to have to ask them like what the process is for that, because I'd be interested in learning more. But very cool. And they've got some local ingredients and all that good stuff. I'm stoked about what they're doing. I'm excited to finally, get ourselves there a few times this fall. It's always good to visit Harrisonburg, and their Charlottesville location is pretty darn cool too.
And their Roanoke.
Mm-hmm.
And they're Richmond. But if you find yourself in Harrisonburg this football season, if you find yourself in Harrisonburg, specifically inside of Bridgeforth Stadium on Saturday as the Dukes take on Bucknell, be sure to get your hands, I'm trying to turn it the right way, on one of these bad boys as I'm holding it the wrong way. It is an exclusive can just for Bridgeforth Stadium. It's Minuteman. They're 16 ounces. They are purple and gold. You'll want to try and buy as many as they will let you when you're inside Bridgeforth. Of course, consume responsibly. but three-notched. They are hooking up JMU fans this season inside of Bridgeforth.
Very cool. I'm excited about that for sure.
And someone else that's hooking you up is, I don't know where I was going with that. That was going to get
But they're hooking us up
really quick. But real quick, a word from Christopher William Jewelers.
There's a reason Christopher William Jewelers has been voted best of Virginia year after year. It's not just one thing that sets us apart. It's everything. It's the selection, extensive and unmatched, with every engagement ring, loose diamond, and fashion jewelry chosen for quality and brilliance. It's the service. From our diamond experts to our master goldsmith, our team shares a passion for what they do, and it shows. It's the atmosphere, both glamorous and laid back. See for yourself why people can't stop talking about Christopher William Jewelers in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave.
Heck yeah.
Are you ready to talk about the biggest news story, I think, maybe of the last 2 years of JMU football?
Not even of JMU football, just like nationally.
But like, this might be the biggest news. And tell me if I'm overreacting to this.
I think the Sun Belt move.
I was going to say, since the Sun Belt move, since the Sun Belt move, is this the biggest piece of JMU football news?
I would say probably, given the long-term potential of naming a redshirt freshman as your starting quarterback.
Yes. What is that long-term potential?
Well, he's obviously a talented player, but I think the fact is that, like, if they retain Barnett, which is going to be an interesting storyline potentially in the offseason, and Cignetti, right, and some of the coaches, you could have Alonza Barnett as QB1 for 3 or 4 seasons, right? So I think Joshua Dixon had a good tweet that you quote tweeted. Like, he'd be a redshirt junior starting for the team when they go into Blacksburg in 2025. Like, that would be huge. So the fact that the college football playoff would expand with group of 5 access, and you have a quarterback who, by that time has probably gained significant experience, has a ton of talent and upside, you become one of the group of 5 contenders to make the playoff.
Yeah, which is insane.
Of course, he has to go out and play, right? He's got to go out and prove it. But by all accounts, he's very talented.
Okay, so just to kind of recap, in case you haven't been following along with JMU Twitter, Alonza Barnett was named the starting quarterback yesterday. That was Tuesday. We're recording Wednesday night. So Alonza Barnett was named the starting quarterback yesterday without being officially named the starting quarterback. Here's the thing, though. He's been the QB1. I completely lost my train of thought there. He's been the QB1 since the second day of fall camp, essentially.
Yeah, so Curt Cignetti says, we'll have to get into a lot of these quotes. Curt Cignetti says that on the second day of fall camp, Alonza Barnett took the snaps with the first team offense, and he has not relinquished that like QB1 duty since. So we were the reporting was like it's a back and forth, highly competitive battle. Doesn't really sound like it was. Kind of sounds like Barnett won the thing pretty immediately.
Yeah, it sounds like this. I mean, it's kind of what his head coach from Grimsley High School, Darryl Brown, said in that interview we had, where he was like, if you let Alonza onto the field, it's going to be hard to get him off. And that bore out to be true as you put him on the field with the ones. Apparently it was so hard to get him off that he's essentially been the QB1 since the second day of fall camp. And kind of my questions, and I want to get your take on this. Do you think that means Jordan McLeod has just been taking snaps with the 2s? Or do you think that means Jordan McLeod just didn't get pure 50-50 splits with the 1s?
I bet he was getting some reps with the 1s. McLeod, at least occasionally. I'm sure they gave him some looks in the spring. I think maybe I don't know what the right word would be, but something that's kind of gone under the radar is that Dave Riggert's mentioned this in a few interviews with Noah Fleischman of the DNR. Apparently, at some point at the end of the spring, Cignetti had mentioned that Barnett was ahead. That was never really reported.
Yes.
At the end of the spring.
At all. Which makes sense, though, if that was known, because I got to say, I was wrong. I mean,
we were both wrong. Yeah.
We were both wrong, and I think we should mention that right off the jump. Where, I mean, I think my take, not to like be like my take was worse than your take, but I think my take was worse than your take, and I think I'm in Connor Mitch territory because I said Jordan McLeod was going to win the job and then win Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year. That's looking a little rough, but it makes sense on how the spring game was being reported. If you remember back to that game, the coverage around it was a little skewed towards Barnett and like anti-Jordan McLeod. And now that kind of makes sense if they knew Barnett was the assumed QB1 or like was the favorite going into fall camp. Because at the time, we didn't know that. To us, the normal JMU fan, Jordan McLeod was still the favorite because he was the Pac-12 transfer.
It's still surprising to me because I assumed that even when I had heard that comment at some point in the summer that Dave Rickard had mentioned that he was high on Barnett coming out of the spring, I kind of assumed McLeod having more time in the offense would give him a chance to end up being quarterback one. So I was surprised still that it ended up sort of flipping there where he's QB2, Barnett's QB1. Very surprised that there's a significant gap, but it's got to mean that Alonza Barnett is like an elite level talent, right?
Yeah, I mean, plug in here. The roundtable comes out here soon, and we talked about kind of what our expectations are for Barnett, and I'll spoil my take a little bit. I think this means he's elite. I think this means he may get national recognition fairly early on in this season. If the Dukes go out and win every game to start this season, they make it to October and they're undefeated and they're getting ranked, there is a strong likelihood he is the only freshman/redshirt freshman as the starting quarterback for a nationally ranked school. You talked about it. I've tweeted about it a ton because I think it is an absolutely phenomenal stat that you found. He's the only redshirt freshman to start for a team that was ranked in the top 25 last year. He's the only freshman/redshirt freshman/sophomore outside of two potential Heisman candidates that's starting for a team that was ranked last season. This is a kid that has the potential to be extremely elite, and this means that he is elite if he's able to beat out Jordan McLeod, apparently beat out Brett Griffiths too, and apparently Billy Atkins has a good arm, according to Kurt Cignetti. But, like, it means this guy's the best QB in this room, but it also means he's lined up to be fantastic down the line.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I saw some tweets that were like, he picked JMU and FCS school over some FBS
I've said this. You can at me on this.
Okay. Not a lot, though. Like he did. But it was one that's fascinating because it wasn't like he picked JMU over for a Power 5 school or a bunch of Power 5 teams. He was getting like some MAC offers. I think Army offered him. Charlotte offered him. But it's one where he was kind of under-recruited for how talented he appears to be. This seems to be like a massive get for recruiting. He seems like he has the potential to be exceptional, which is really exciting. Here, my question for you: yes, they would get a ton of national recognition if they start like 5-0. Any concern about the fact that they're going to go into UVA with him having never thrown a pass against an FBS team?
Bennett, let's not focus on the negatives here. He threw for over 5,000 yards in high school, man. He threw for over 70 touchdowns. He had a combined 92 rushing and passing touchdowns in his career with over 1,100 rush yards. Come on, you're being too negative, man. No, 100% that's a worry. Like, that is, without a doubt, a major worry here because, like, McLeod has not only starting experience against FBS schools, he has starting experience against Power 5 schools, which I think is really important going into the UVA game. Again, Barnett can shock us all, and from what it seems like, he's capable of shocking us all. But it is a major worry that his first ever FBS pass attempt will come against UVA at UVA. That is extremely scary because that's a game that means so much, not only for like JMU fans in the short term, but like in the long term look of how JMU is viewed in Virginia.
It's a massive game. And we'll get into it more next week, but it's huge. Like, that game means so much. The game after it means a lot, right? Because Kurt Cignetti, even like in the preseason, was kind of joking, like, yeah, de facto Sun Belt title game. We never got our chance against Troy. And it's like kind of a different team. Like, Centeio's gone. Troy has different players. So it's interesting that he sort of dubbed it like that. But that one matters a lot too. Utah State, that's a Mountain West game where if you could beat a Mountain West conference team, there's some value there. Like South Alabama, all those games are huge. It's
a murderer's row to start the season. South Alabama, after 2 weeks, is going to be ranked in the top 20. That is going to be a potential ranked win if JMU can beat South Alabama.
And then I think the part that stands out to me a lot is like he's got a chance in the first 3 games to either be like the big man on campus or people are going to like call for McLeod. Because Virginia and Troy can ball defensively. They have significant questions offensively. So like if JMU loses those games, it's probably going to be offensive shortcomings, which I think will make people a little like, oh, what's going on here? If they win the games, people are going to be like, Alonza Barnett's going to win the Heisman in 2 years. So I think it's going to be just an insane first few games in terms of takes on the internet, which I like. I like Cignetti leaning into content potentially here. So I'm excited about that. Slightly worried, but at the same time, if you beat out McLeod, which Barnett has done, and they think he's the best quarterback, I'm not that worried about him going into UVA. Like UVA, it's not like they're going to play like at Alabama or something. Like Scott Stadium's not that scary. There's gonna be a lot of purple. So I think he'll adjust and be fine. I also think he'll grow a lot from September to like November if given the opportunity to start the whole season.
Yes, and you mentioned it. It means he beat out McLeod. So what does this tell you about Alonza Barnett's ability / Jordan McLeod's inability to win the job?
A little confused by the whole thing. Like I thought Jordan McLeod looked pretty good when I watched like his tape, right? It wasn't just highlights. I pulled up games where he threw picks and stuff and watched those.
Oh, okay,
but it's also not like I was watching like some sort of all 22 or something and doing some deep dive on him. But he's a pretty good player. He has experience. I don't know. Like, I don't know what does it tell you?
It tells me that McLeod isn't the same as what he was pre-injury. So for fans that don't know, Jordan McLeod, the reason his time at Arizona ended, you got a lot of activity outside your window today.
Yeah, we got some ambulances and stuff.
It tells me that I think he shattered his knee and ankle. So essentially everything, I don't know if it was his right or left leg. I'm not sure it matters that much when you shatter a knee and an ankle because you got to use both legs to walk and run. So he did that, absolutely destroyed the bottom half of one of his legs. And I think that's a massive injury to overcome. Like, I think tearing an ACL is slightly different than blowing out a knee and an ankle. And I think maybe he's still in that rehab process, or he just can't get back to 100%. And of course, I'm projecting 1,000,000%. I have no idea what's actually happening behind closed doors. I have no idea what happened in his rehab. I have no idea what happened during the practices. He could be 100%. He could be 120%, and Barnett is that good. But from the outside looking in, this tells me McLeod isn't fully healthy. He's not back to his pre-injury self. It also tells me I think the team may have a little bit more of a buy-in on Barnett.
I think that's true. I think
because those quotes were telling. No one asked, like, was there buy-in from the team? And Cignetti went out of his way to say, like, the guys have rallied around him.
At one point, he goes, I have total confidence in Alonza, and the offense does too. And it was like, oh. And then, like, Latrell Palmer spoke, and he was like, they asked him, like, what stood out? And he's like, he just doesn't seem like a freshman. Like, he's very mature, like, weirdly mature, can sling it around. Then someone asked if it feels different with, like, a redshirt senior at quarterback last year or this year. He's like, no, like, it just seems the same. So I think he might be sort of mature beyond his years, so to speak. But here's a fun hypothetical for you. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I did some internet sleuthing too, and I was going through Barnett's Instagram posts. Todd Centeio has commented like on all of the posts he's had since Centeio left.
I think people just really like him,
which tells me there was like a really good relationship there, and it also tells me that I bet they text. I bet he's getting tips and pointers from Centeio. Like I bet he's like partially a coach.
That's a good point. Good sleuthing.
Thank you.
Here's my question for you. The fans don't know anything about Alonza Barnett other than that he is quote unquote good, right? We are under the impression that he's freakishly good. We've never actually really seen him do anything. In the first game, if let's say he completes like, I don't know, 62% of his passes, he throws like a couple touchdowns against Bucknell, but he also has like a sloppy interception or something. McLeod plays in the second half, is like 7 of 10 for like 150, 2 touchdowns, and like a 45-yard rush or something crazy.
Yeah.
Did you start getting like immediate takes being like, I don't know?
I
Like,
think
how do
we'll
you think
see some. I won't. I will say this. I am going to very much hold my thumbs for any crazy tweets that may come in the next 2 months. Like I'm giving him a pretty long leash because this sets itself up for being a great move for JMU in the coming years. With that being said, I'm so excited to see those tweets because they're coming. There's some JMU fans out there. There's some college football fans that just happen to follow JMU who are so excited to watch this, and they are the types of people that will just absolutely pile on a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how people react to it. I also think he's going to be like very impressive.
I do too. Here's a weird take. I have high expectations for him, and I think no matter how high my expectations are, watching him play, I will be blown away because this is a redshirt freshman.
Yeah, like especially when you think about the possibility, right? What Cignetti did with like an old Cole Johnson from like one year to the next, he got a lot better. So if you think of Barnett in this system, and again, it's going to be hard to like retain all of it. But if you keep Cignetti and you keep Barnett for like the next 3 years, again, kind of a hard ask. But if you do that, the potential for the program is rather exciting.
Here's a take, and I don't want to get off on a bunch of tangents because I have a couple other points I want to hit on McLeod before we get into too deep. But does it impact him that much? Zach Wilson became the second overall pick going to BYU. And I'm not saying JMU is BYU, but Carson Wentz went second overall going to an FCS school. If Barnett balls out and he's putting up these amazing numbers in what we consider one of, if not the premier group of 5 conference, will he feel like he has to leave? I think quarterback's the one position where you could succeed and become a top first. Again, throwing way too much expectation on him, saying he could be a first-round draft pick. But you know what I mean? Like, the reason Tucker Dorsey left, the reason why we're afraid Jalen Walker will leave, the reason why, what is he named? Juice Wells now? The reason why Juice Wells left to go to South Carolina is because the SEC is so much better at developing these types of guys. But from the track record, from everything it seems, Tino Sunseri and Kurt Cignetti are great quarterback whisperers, and you don't necessarily need to be a Power 5 high-end quarterback to get that type of look.
I totally agree. We're also very premature in this discussion.
Here we are 3 years down the road. So first round, top 15 or top 10?
I just think it's fascinating, the outlook where like JMU in 2023 is so stacked. Like, I don't care what people say. Like, this team looks phenomenally good. I'm very excited about what they can be. They're on a great trajectory. The challenge is at the group of 5, keeping your best players, keeping your best coaches and your head coach. Like, so there are a lot of challenges there that kind of could go up and down. But if Barnett is in the offense for multiple years, it's going to be absurd. I think it has a chance to be special this year because the offensive line is stacked. The running back room is good. I'm optimistic about receiver. The defense is good. Like, he doesn't have to be the best player in the Sun Belt for JMU to win 10 games. He just needs to be efficient.
He could be 50% of what Centeio was, and I think this team will be able to win at least 7 games.
I kind of think so too, right? If he just like limits mistakes.
Yeah, if maybe he's not throwing for 250 yards a game, 275 yards a game, but if he doesn't turn the ball over.
Dude, McLeod is a good player. To beat him out like on day 2 of fall camp, my God, I'm very excited to see what it looks like.
So, I mean, then now going into it, we've talked a little bit about expectations, but for this specific season, what do you expect out of Barnett, and what do you expect out of McLeod as the backup? But the backup situation is fluid.
Yeah, that was a weird quote. Well, okay, so I guess we're sort of merging into too deep, right? I guess we can start just with quarterback too deep, and then it'll be our expectations for Barnett a little bit.
Yeah, I guess so. So too deep talk. Okay, yeah, let's hit it.
So I think essentially at the quarterback spot, at least, it was the or thing, but it was in order, right? They do the or, which is completely irrelevant because it's literally just an order of the quarterbacks. So it's Barnett, McLeod, Brett Griffiths at 3, Billy Atkins not listed despite having what appears to be generational arm talent. We'll get to that
Oh
in
my
a little bit.
gosh.
But like that was fascinating to me. I think they have better quarterback depth than last year. Like undoubtedly, I think they've added depth at quarterback that they did not have last year, which is impressive. I think that like the question for me is like if Barnett is head and shoulders above a couple of good players, I'm having a hard time like telling myself he won't be one of the best players in the Sun Belt come November. Right? Maybe that's way too high, but I think he's going to be elite immediately.
Sorry, this whole time I've been trying to pull up this Too Deep, and I finally got to it. For our podcast listeners, so much apologies, because more so apologies to our viewers here tonight, because I've been staring off at another screen just like poking things, and things have been popping up. But here we go. So are you saying, isn't it why? Can you please go over your question? Too long didn't read Cliff Note version of it.
Here's what I'm just fascinated by. First point, I think they have better quarterback depth than last year in general.
Okay, yes, agreed.
Second point is like if Barnett can come out of this deep group as like clearly the runaway guy, my expectations are for him is that he's going to be like one of the best quarterbacks in the Sun Belt immediately, which might be too high.
Yes,
but that's how I feel.
Do you think it speaks about anything that Cignetti hasn't tried to dampen expectations?
I think so, because he very easily could have went through Tuesday and said the quarterbacks are, they're playing well. It was a great competition, and said nothing. Instead, he's like, yeah, Alonza's better than all of them by like a lot. It was like, what? Because nobody asked him specifically in this instance. It was kind of like, what have you seen from the quarterbacks? And he's like, well, Alonza Barnett is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Basically what he said. So I think he's adding to the hype a little bit. Obviously a super easy first game for Barnett, but then after that it gets tough. So it'll be fascinating to see how he develops.
Yeah. So quickly, we'll take some time on this Too Deep. And we'll probably end up talking about Barnett and McLeod a little bit more as the podcast rolls on. But at left tackle, stop me when you want to dive into a position group.
Okay.
Left tackle is Tyshawn Wyatt. Left guard is Tyler Stevens. Remember when they put Tyler Stevens at left tackle?
They've done a lot of like randomly moving people. And they're like, we're just trying something new. It's like, okay.
Center is Tanner Morris. Right guard, Cole Potts. And at right tackle is Nick Kidwell.
Okay. Offensive line. Not a ton stands out to me. The only point that I would make that I thought was interesting was Aaron Gunn, the Louisville transfer, who we hadn't really heard anything about, is Kidwell's backup at right tackle. So it sounds like that seemed to be a nice portal addition.
Yeah. Aaron Gunn, redshirt sophomore, so you got a good amount of eligibility left out of him. Nick Kidwell, a redshirt senior, so shapes up well for 2024 and beyond.
One more point that I got off my annual tweet of their average size, which is my favorite thing to do and the least relevant thing you can possibly tweet, but I do it every year. 6'3.5", basically 311 pounds. These are some big boys.
311 pounds? Tyshawn Wyatt at 325 really beefs up that line.
I also love that they have Wyatt as I feel like sometimes you'll see heavy guards, but maybe that's wrong. But to have both your tackles as your heaviest offensive lineman, it kind of cracks me up, but pretty cool.
Well, I think it and I'm getting, this might be a little bit too much inside baseball type of talk, and I may be completely off base, but from what I think if you have heavier tackles, you want to run a little bit more outside zone.
That sounds right, because you can.
So maybe a little bit of a change, because typically Cignetti likes to run inside type of stuff between the tackles, inside, but like off the guards, where now your biggest guys are your tackles. That also just could be because your tackles are your best players, and like they have NFL aspirations. Too. And Tyshawn Wyatt at 6'4", 325 is an NFL prototypical tackle size.
Yeah.
So
okay.
QB, we've talked about it. We'll talk about it more. Running back, it's Kalon Black listed at number 1 with Latrell Palmer or Solomon Van Horse as the running back. No Tyson Lawton. Bennett, do you care to explain?
So it sounded like from recent interviews, Lawton is a little banged up. So my guess would be that Tyson Lawton will not play against Bucknell or play in a very, very limited fashion, and then they'll have him, hopefully, for the September stretch run. Well, I guess not really a stretch run so early, but the September run against very good teams.
I will say, Kalon Black, it was never really a competition there.
He's so good, dude.
I think a lot of people have kind of thought that there was this Kalon Black, disrespect. No, he's just so good that I don't think the media really wanted to talk to him all that much because it was like a foregone conclusion. He was running back one. The biggest question for him is, can he stay healthy? The redshirt sophomore has not played a full season since he's come to Harrisonburg. When he is on, he's one of the best. When he's banged up, he's not that great. So he needs to stay healthy to keep it together for this entire season.
I have a question for you. One of my many questions for you.
Hit me.
Van Horst is listed, baby. Is this the year? Do we get a Van Horst breakout year?
So we just were talking about it. Maybe the bigger guys on the outside, they're running a more outside zone type of scheme. Solomon Van Horst wasn't used because they used a lot more inside type of stuff between the tackles, off the guards. And that's why Van Horst never played. He didn't have that size. He's only 5'8", 183. The other two running backs are 215 on average. Kalon Black's 210. Latrell Palmer's 220. So Van Horst doesn't fit that type of ground and pound, 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of play style that Cignetti wants out of his running backs. But maybe they're going to a little bit more of an outside zone type of stuff. We also could be reading way too much into it because Tyson Lawton is hurt. But also there's an or, which means he could be the second.
I hope he gets some run. I really do.
All right, so wide receiver is Tajee Hudson with Elijah Surratt as the backup to Tajee Hudson. And wide receiver 2 is Reggie Brown with Maxwell Moss behind him. And Phoenix Sproles as the slot with Ymir Knight, the freshman.
Yeah, are you surprised at all by how young that group is?
No, because are they that young? I mean, 2 redshirt seniors and a redshirt sophomore as the starters. I mean, is that young, Bennett? Jeez Louise, man.
The entire group of the 2 deep. So Surratt, Moss, Knight. Well, I think, didn't we anticipate Dollison getting in here?
I thought Dollison. I thought Dollison because McLeod. They both are USF transfers and played together at USF. I thought there'd be a little bit of a connection there.
He can hit 22.7 miles per hour on the catapult or whatever. He's doing that on the sidelines. I don't know. It's surprising to me.
Come for Alonza Barnett during the first half. Stay for Dollison on the sidelines running really hard at half.
Good sign, I guess, with Moss and Knight, though, right? The true freshmen already getting in there. Apparently they're pretty darn good. I'm fascinated by what the receivers look like. And then also Hudson, who has 1 career catch, being, apparently very good. Let's see what that looks like.
I'm also very interested because how will this position shake out throughout the season?
Yeah,
barring injuries, will this be the same 2 deep we see in a month?
This one seems like, right, you can have the most fluctuation where a couple practices or games and some game week practices, other guys sort of shift maybe with the freshmen or whatever. We'll see.
So tight end, it's Zach Horton, Kai Wright, and Taylor Thompson.
That seems normal.
Or Taylor Thompson. So I think that makes sense.
What we expected, right?
I think Taylor Thompson, we've talked about it at length. He'll be used more as a receiving tight end. Defensive end, Mikel Kamara, backed up by Abi Nwabakuakonji. Nose guard, James Carpenter, backed up by Emmanuel Bush. Defensive tackle, Jamri Croma, backed up by Tyreek Tucker. And defensive end, Jalen Green, backed up by Mikel Kamara. Any surprises here?
Maybe concerned about depth?
Yes, that's it. Ding, ding, ding. I'm fully on board with that.
Yeah, this is one where what would have been cool if Isaac Ukwu stayed. It's just tough with I think they probably really like these starting guys, and then the guys after him aren't bad. But when you've got Jalen Green, who's backed up by the other starting defensive end, it's
there's nothing there.
Maybe there's not quite as much. I do think Amar Thomas is a really good up and coming defensive end, but he's not listed. So I don't know. We'll see. We're going to see every player on the roster against Bucknell. So I'm going to try to pay close attention to who subs in after these guys. if there's some guys, especially on the defensive line, who they trust that aren't listed here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what stood out to me the most. Kamara being the backup to Jalen Green on the opposite defensive end side. That is very worrisome because Kamara didn't play a full season last year. He did get injured. Granted, he's only a redshirt sophomore, so his career is very young, and it's too early to say that there are injury concerns around him. But it is worth noting that he hasn't played a full season. Yeah. That is a big thing, and he's being heavily relied on as both a starter and essentially a depth piece.
Yeah, that's a tough one because they didn't bring in any notable transfers.
Quick aside for everyone that wants a peek behind Bennett and I's life. Bennett just got the first overall pick in our fantasy football draft that is coming up in an hour. So
that's huge for me.
Do you want to trade it?
No trades there. I'm just going to take Jared Goff and get on with it.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. Will linebacker is Jalen Walker. Mike linebacker is Taurus Jones. They are backed up by Trent Hendrick and Aiden Fisher, respectively.
Possibly the most boring camp positional battles. The two deep has been set, I feel for 6 months at this position at linebacker.
Yes.
No surprises.
Rover, Jarius Reminique.
Yeah.
Or Chris Chukwinecki.
Uh-huh.
Chris Chukwinecki was the starting Rover a year ago, I think, right? Or did they switch throughout the season?
They switched a lot. This is this whole thing with the safeties where it's we got 8 of them, and it's well, who do you want to play?
Yeah, so I'm going to skip over the corners for right now. We're going to stick with the safeties. Jacob Thomas or Francis Mihan as the safety, the strong safety, and then the free safety is Cheese, Surratt, or Q Reed.
Can you imagine?
Who's Jacob Thomas?
Where was that name, right? That came out of left field. It was just we have all these veteran safeties, but Jacob Thomas is better than them. It was I didn't know much about Jacob Thomas.
I didn't know we had a Jacob Thomas on the roster. I was honestly reading this too deep, and as I'm going along, okay, that makes sense. Reggie Brown, yep, all right. Devin Coles, oh, that's a little interesting, but all right. Chauncey Logan, cool. Jalen Walker, awesome. Taurus Jones, cool. Jacob Thomas, sophomore. Who?
Encouraging that he's answering.
Sounds like placeholder text. Sorry, go ahead.
No, his answer in the press conference was very confusing and added almost no insight. It was Jacob Thomas, senior year of high school, his team moved him to quarterback, and he's playing safety for us. It was what? He didn't explain anything. He was just he had a good year at quarterback, so he must be a really good athlete. I guess he was saying that he plays fast when there are 11 guys in the field and they really like him. So exciting that there's a new name in the mix there, because we've been asking for guys to make plays, and maybe Thomas can do that, but definitely surprised.
Yeah. And then the corners are Devin Coles, backed up by Brent Austin, and Chauncey Logan, backed up by Justin Eaglin. You made a fantastic point about the corners.
Did I?
Where are the Power 5 transfers?
I forgot I even texted you that. Yeah, it's well, they brought in all these Power 5 transfers, right? I feel in the offseason we were being told about Trayvell Mullen and how he's this Indiana transfer with a ton of potential, and every family member he's ever met and every cousin he's ever met plays in the NFL. He's not on the 2 deep. That was interesting, right? Meredith, NC State transfer, and then Antoine Booth, Michigan State transfer. Neither of those guys who came in last season, I guess.
This is their second year in the system.
Okay. Neither of those guys are on the 2 deep. Booth looked like there were a bunch of camp videos where he wasn't in pads. So when he talked about soft tissue injuries, I think Booth probably falls into that camp. But interested, because it's you brought in some of these guys with good, high school pedigree that haven't really broken in. I'm still concerned about the secondary, to be honest.
I am too.
And then even Logan, who's a super good, Chauncey Logan, a super good player, Heisman candidate, a few people are saying, backed up by Justin Eaglin, who's never played in a game.
Yes.
And it's another one where it's that. Not that he can't handle that, but there's some decent receivers that JMU is going to face in September and beyond, where it would be hard for someone who's never really played, and he'll certainly play against Bucknell, but someone who's never really played to come in and immediately be like, yeah, we're putting you on an island against like a 6'4" UVA receiver.
Yeah, and because when you're talking about corners, like cornerback 1, Coles, cornerback 2, Logan, they are going to play 95% of the snaps.
Yeah.
But then your cornerback 3, which is what I would assume Brent Austin is.
Probably, right.
And Justin Eaglin, though, is your cornerback 4. Like against UVA may be running sets with 4 receivers. Like you are going to get snaps. Like we will see Justin Eaglin in, and he will be getting snaps. So it is quite telling that he was able to beat out all of these other guys to get playtime this season, assuming he sticks there on the 2 deep.
Yeah, that'll be fascinating to keep an eye on. Was kind of hoping my guy D'Angelo Pons would break in, but in due time, the deep end will arrive.
All right. Special teams. Punter is Ryan Hansen. Place kicker is Camden Wise. Kickoff specialist is Connor Madden. Long snapper is Caden Schickel. Did I get that right?
Yes.
I did. I like how they had the pronunciation for Caden and not Schickel. All right. Holder, Ryan Hansen. Kick returner is Van Horst. Punt returner, we're running it back with Surratt.
Need to see a little more in the return game and special teams in general, but excited. Kind of hope that the drive at some point stalls and they can get Camden Wise like an easy field goal against Bucknell to just start the confidence. Because he was a lot better at the end of the season than he was at the beginning, and I think he would probably benefit from like just a really nice opener.
I would agree with that.
Also, I want to float this theory now. If the UVA game is close, Camden Wise, a kick to win, playing for JMU, his hometown is Blacksburg. I would like that storyline very much. Like maybe rooted for the Hokies as a kid. Now he plays for JMU, takes down UVA. That would be hilarious to me. So I'm putting that into existence now as a possibility.
All right, I like it. I dig that a lot. Do you want to move into what's next on our docket for the day?
Why not?
All right. It's time for the best segment of all JMU-focused podcasts. It's time for the Sunbelt Weekly Pick'em. After a long time away, this amazing segment is back. This segment has brought you so many memorable moments, including Bennett winning it every single year. I didn't even keep track of it last season because we forgot it on half the weeks, and the other half of the weeks, Bennett destroyed me. But this week, this year, I'm back. I'm ready to destroy you in the Sunbelt Pick'em. This week, we got a ton of Sunbelt teams going up against FCS schools. Did you know the Sunbelt holds the longest conference win streak against FCS teams in the nation?
I did not know that.
I just saw that stat today on Twitter. X. So therefore, it must be true. You ready to get this bad boy going?
Hit me.
Week 1, Game 1, Thursday, tomorrow night, Rhode Island, Georgia State. Who do you got?
Love this game for Georgia State. Bounce back win over, what are they, the Coastal Athletic Association? Have they rebranded yet, the CAA, or are they still?
Oh, that's right. The CAA rebranded to be the Coastal Athletic Association. So you're going Rhode Island?
No, I'm taking Georgia State in a comfortable win.
Yeah, I think Georgia State is going to really make their presence known on the national stage, the FCS national stage, that is, with a beatdown of Rhode Island. Next up, Arkansas State against Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma is going to win this one. Arkansas State, it would be nice to see the program show a little life after being a darn good Sunbelt team a few years back, but I don't think that starts on Saturday.
No, I think Oklahoma blows them out, and it is a sad time. Next up, it's Gardner-Webb at App State.
App State should win this one. It'll be their third FCS win over the last 2 years. Nobody loves playing FCS teams more than App State, keeping themselves out of bowl games with these moronic schedules. Good for App State. I think they win, though.
Do I do the stupid pick here and just to rub it in App State? No. Ryan Berger just named the Mountaineers head coach. Just named the Mountaineers.
I'm worried about Barnett now. They got a special redshirt freshman in Boone if he's doing a player-coach situation.
Ryan Berger just named the quarterback one. He'll get it done against Gardner-Webb. Next up, The Citadel against Georgia Southern. Did you hear the Citadel's coach's comments the other day?
Just putting his team on blast.
This coach, if you haven't seen the clip, you need to hunt it down because the coach just goes, "We're not good at football. We don't have any answers. We're not good. We're not ready to play a football game because we just aren't where we need to be because we're not good. Too many people have told us we're good when we're not." Like a 3-minute rant about being bad. It was an all-timer. I don't think that helps the Citadel get this win, and I think Georgia Southern wins.
I think Georgia Southern wins, and the Citadel parents stop feeding positive press clippings to their kids.
What a quote. Bucknell at JMU.
That's a great question. I think JMU wins this game by a whole lot of points.
I agree. I have JMU scoring the most that they ever have under Kurt Cignetti.
Yeah, that's impressive. I like that.
Thank you. Albany at Marshall.
Marshall. They've got a, and now I have to look at, it's Reese Poffenbarger is the name of Albany's starting quarterback. To go from Jeff Undercuffler to Reese Poffenbarger is elite level recruiting, but I still think Marshall wins this one.
Yeah, good for them. I'm also on Marshall. I think that defense might be really good again.
Yeah.
Alcorn State, Southern Miss. Wow, there are a lot of games on the docket.
Yeah, not a lot of great ones. I like Southern Miss in this spot for sure. Although I'm pretty sure Alcorn State is one of the 700 teams on the 24/7 Sports talent composite rankings ahead of JMU, but we'll throw that out and go with Southern Miss.
Yeah, I think Southern Miss too. Apparently, some people are saying that they may be sneaky good this year in the West.
People are saying that. Is it true? I don't know, but I've heard it.
Yeah, I don't know. Texas State at Baylor.
Texas State's going to run a fun offense. It's not going to really matter in this one, I don't think. I think Baylor probably pretty big margin of victory here.
I agree. Stephen F. Austin, Troy.
Troy, man. Troy gets themselves ready for Kansas State next week with a nice little tune-up.
Yeah, the Fighting Troy Boltons are going to do what they want to do against the Lumberjacks from Stephen F. Austin. Army ULM. This one actually is quite interesting.
A little more interesting here. Army's still a 10-ish point favorite, so I'm going to go ahead and take Army here. Safe play early, try to get a lead in the standings here.
I'm going to go Army as well. My strategy for this entire season is just to pick the exact same game as you. The exact same winner, and so no matter what, I can't lose. No, I think Army wins. I think Army is a lot better than ULM. They're not supposed to be good this year. South Alabama, Tulane. We may have different picks for this one.
This is my favorite game of the weekend. In the Sun Belt, certainly, and maybe one of my favorites across the country. A couple of great Group of 5 teams. I think South Alabama is going to upset Tulane.
No!
I think Tulane's slightly overrated. I like South Alabama a lot.
I'm going South Alabama, too. I love the Jaguars. I think they may win the Sun Belt this year. Yeah. I'm really bummed you picked them because I thought this is where we would be different, and I thought I would take the lead here. ODU, Virginia Tech.
Yeah, it's a sold-out night game in Lane Stadium. ODU has a horrendous-looking roster on paper. They're moving to this up-tempo offense, which to me sounds like they're going to have some really, really sped-up 3-and-outs on Saturday. I think they're going to get demolished. I think it's going to be ugly. Virginia Tech by 30 plus. I think it's going to be terrible.
Yeah. Louisiana, Northwestern State.
Louisiana should win that one. Another team like Southern Miss, people are saying could be a little dangerous in the West.
I'm going to agree with you on that as well, just because I don't see Northwestern State doing anything to upset the hierarchy of college football. Coastal Carolina at UCLA in Pasadena, California.
UCLA is talking about running a bunch of quarterbacks out there, which is kind of confusing. They may have switched off that. Coastal Carolina is a 2-touchdown underdog, and I know in the back of my mind, they're still frauds. I don't care. I'm taking Coastal Carolina in the upset. I love Grayson McCall. I love this kid. I think they're going to find a way. If they can get anything going defensively, and they have a new defensive coordinator this year, I think they can get it done. I think the offense is going to be phenomenal.
That's insane. I think Coastal covers. I think UCLA wins.
I think Coastal Carolina wins this one. Sun Belt, huge week for the Sun Belt with wins over Tulane and UCLA.
Wow. All right. Well, that brings us to the next fantastic segment. You ready? for a little news or snooze on this Wednesday night. Presented by Christopher William Jewelers. Do you have 3 quotes ready?
I do.
Okay, hit me.
Okay, news or snooze? First one, we'll lead with a good one. Kurt Cignetti, we've already kind of talked about this. Alonza has separated himself from the pack, pretty significantly. Always was a talented guy. It was just a matter of when everything would click. I just want to say with this quote, hilarious to be like, just a matter of time for him. It's like, it was pretty quick. Like, it clicked very quickly. It didn't.
Did you expect him to be a true freshman starting last year?
We were just waiting for this kid to figure it out.
That's a quote you say to a redshirt senior.
Yeah. When's it going to click for Cole Johnson?
Right. I think that's a newsworthy quote. I think the reason it's newsworthy is it is saying that this wasn't a close competition. There was never really a point Jordan McLeod had a leg up over Alonza Barnett. It was always Barnett, it seems like. And not only did McLeod never really close the gap, Brett Griffiths never closed the gap. Instead, Alonza Barnett just continued to get better and better and made that gap larger and larger. And hearing that tells me that Barnett should be good. There should not be a drop-off from quarterback play a year ago to this year.
Yeah, fascinating stuff there. I agree that it's news. All right, number 2, short one. Latrell Palmer, JMU running back, said that Yamir Knight, he said this of Yamir Knight, true freshman wide receiver, is going to work sort of in a little slotty role as a backup. He kind of reminds me of KT, referring to Chris Thornton.
Okay, snooze.
Okay, that's a fair snooze.
I think I'll snooze anytime a player talks about like a former player, like they remind me of this person. Like, I don't know if you saw the quote making the rounds from Willie Snead, but whatever team he's on now, who's he on? He was talking about like a young quarterback and goes, he reminds me of a young Drew Brees. And everyone was like, what? And then they dug up a quote from Willie Snead like 3 years ago when he was on the Ravens talking about Lamar Jackson. And he said, quote, he reminds me of a young Drew Brees.
Oh, he says it about everybody. Snead's a big Centeo guy.
Willie Snead?
Yeah, I think they have some workout connection.
How do you know this?
He had a tweet in the offseason that was like, it's ridiculous that Centeo's not on a roster or something. I was like,
probably because Todd Centeo reminds Willie Snead of a young Drew Brees.
Drew Brees. That's interesting. That's a fair snooze. I'm excited for Yamir Knight, though, in these freshmen. I want to see what he looks like on the field. But I agree that probably a little early to start comparing him to Chris Thornton, who was the most reliable receiver on the team last year. Okay. Here's the last one, which I love. This is probably my favorite quote of the week from Kurt Cignetti. Billy, referring to Billy Atkins, Billy has always been, from an arm talent standpoint, as good as we've ever had in the program. News or snooze?
Snooze. Where was that arm talent against Marshall?
That quote came completely out of left field. He talks about how Barnett's great. He praises McLeod for his experience and his ability to process defenses. Said Griffiths progressed well, and then he goes, Billy Atkins has the best arm talent of anyone ever in the program. Wow, that's a big quote and kind of stunning for him to be QB4. Yeah, I would snooze it too. That was stunning to me that he said that. But
I think that is Kurt Cignetti laying the groundwork for Billy to transfer next year.
He said some interesting quotes about Atkins, though, because last year, after the Marshall game, he's like, if he was a good practice player, he'd be a good prospect. It was like, whoa, taking a shot at him. And now he's he's got this great arm. So is he still frustrated with his practice habits or something? I don't know.
That might be it, but it's snooze regardless. This is a QB4 we're talking about.
Yeah, I just found that one really interesting, especially with Griffiths moving his way up the depth chart just to be like, yeah, he's progressing fine. But the guy behind him has the best arm you'll ever see.
It's also wild that I'm surprised one of your quotes wasn't that the backup quarterback situation is fluid.
That was a great quote as well, which also doesn't make sense. And then he said McLeod would be the backup. He might be saying that to keep Griffiths and Atkins engaged throughout the season.
Yeah, maybe. And then the last segment of the day, it's time for the 3-Notched weekly preview. Bucknell, not a lot to say about the Bison. They were picked to finish near the back of the Patriot League. This is an FCS school that doesn't have a lot of hopes going into this season in terms of like outside hope. In the locker room, of course, they hope to win the national championship. But if you asked a player off the record, I bet they wouldn't even say that that's one of their hopes. This team should be easy work for JMU.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect this to be an overly competitive game at all. They have a couple decent players. Tyler Alston, I believe, on the defensive line is one of the better defensive edge guys in the Patriot League. So that'll be an interesting matchup to see how that goes. But there's just a significant talent disadvantage there. It's a team that played Central Michigan last year. Its only FBS opponent lost 41-0. So I think we're kind of expecting a blowout. And if you're JMU, the goal has to be right to get some chemistry probably in the passing game, get some young guys in, and then ideally all of your like key contributors would be able to play a half and stay healthy and not get hurt going into UVA.
Yeah, for the full breakdown, all the keys to the game, head on over to jmusportsnews.com and check out our Keys to the Game article. I fully agree, though. Like, this is a blowout win for JMU if they're still in the FCS. Like, this is Central Connecticut State. This is Morehead State. Like, it should be even more of a blowout in theory when you're FBS and you have more scholarships, and in theory, better talent.
I think that's the thing, right, is JMU's added all this depth so you could theoretically be still kind of piling it on with ease in the third or the fourth quarter. I'm kind of interested to see how the new clock rule works, where it doesn't stop after first downs except for the last 2 minutes of each half. I wonder if like the third and fourth quarter are just going to fly by with JMU just kind of pounding the ball. I'm excited to watch, especially in the beginning, to see what Barnett looks like, to see how the defense looks, all those things. But it's one that like just don't make any dumb mistakes. You should be able to kind of dominate this game the entire 60 minutes.
Yeah, I'm excited to drink my Minuteman beer and enjoy a great game.
Can't wait.
Anything else you want to add?
Quick Olympic sports love.
Hit me.
Quick one. Men's soccer. They're
Ranked
17th after beating UCLA. And I think the thing that kind of stands out, which is fun, I'm always impressed when the Olympic sports teams host those kind of schools. Beating UCLA and Harrisonburg is just like a cool thing to process. It's like, oh, like a Pac-12 school came to Harrisonburg and JMU won that match. That's pretty cool.
Didn't they beat like the number 1 overall team in Harrisonburg a few years back too?
Yeah, Wake Forest came to town, right? And they were like put them down. So they've got some fun ones. UVA. Oh, I did want to say this. I was looking at this week and getting way too ahead of myself, but exciting. The men's soccer team, next 3 matches, Radford, Gardner-Webb, Mount St. Mary's. You would think they could win all 3 of those, right? Be 5-0. On September 12th, they host UVA. So they could beat UVA in football and in football within like a 4-day span. How fun would that be? That's a perfect tweet. I'm firing that thing out like you wouldn't believe if they get that thing done. So I'm excited. I've got that on the radar already.
Love it. Anything else you got to add? Volleyball started their season.
Yeah, I think
in the new convo.
2-1. I know some people, I saw some concerns over them losing to Ohio. Ohio looks like they're probably one of the better teams in the MAC, so it's fine. It's early. Field hockey started. I want to say they had a tough loss to Richmond. They lost 3-0 to Richmond, beat William and Mary. So we'll see how that goes. Not in a conference quite yet. What else we got? Women's soccer. They actually look decent. They tied Maryland in their most recent outing. Have a couple wins. Lost to Virginia Tech 3-0. But other than that, have shown some good signs. Should contend probably for a Sun Belt title. Some good early signs.
Love it. For Bennett Conlon, my name's Jack Fitzpatrick. This has been the JMU Sports News Podcast presented by BetOnline. Alonza Barnett is the QB1, folks. Get ready for the opening game of the JMU football season this Saturday against Bucknell. Until next Wednesday, same time, same place, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You can watch the live stream every single Wednesday, and you can listen wherever you find your podcast. Be sure to rate, like, subscribe, whatever it may be, whatever you have to say here that normally people do. So see ya.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.